This is Duke University. Welcome to everyone. It's a particular treat to see us all here together. I'm Helen Salter, Director of the Center for French and Francophone Studies. And on behalf of what's a really wonderful group of supporters of this event, starting with Middle Eastern Studies, the Trinity Language Committee, and of course, our French language program, the Center for French and Francophone Studies and Romance Studies. It's a particular pleasure to welcome Zeina Abirached to Duke. Yeah. She's coming to us in a series that brings to campus a variety of fiction makers, creators actually working across different forms and throughout and across any number of media. Zeina perhaps identifies herself in a number of different ways. We could say an artist working in the French BD or comics tradition. We could say a graphic writer. We could say a writer. But equally important to remember is that she was born in Beirut, a city that was divided literally as she was growing up there in the 1980s by a line of demarcation called the Green Line, opening up a no man's land that was filled with wild grass, shrapnel. It was that line that she told us shocked her into creative action. It wasn't the only form of the Civil War that did that, because in her own neighborhood, there were a set of makeshift barriers constructed pell-mell with sandbags, leftover cartons, barrels, the detritus of war. And it was in that space, cut off, extremely dangerous and free, where she began to invent, and she's continued ever since. With black and white drawing, telling, and what I'm sure I'm not the only one to be sensitive to, a remarkable form of playfulness. Over 7 years, as many original pieces, many of which I believe she's going to give us a sense of again. But we also have the good fortune to participate as she thinks out loud with us about her latest project entitled Beirut Partita, Beirut Partita, with all of those jeux de mots, playful terms in the title that you can listen to across languages. So let me introduce Claire Tufts, who will carry on introducing Zeina.
Thank you, Helen. It is truly a pleasure for me to find Zeina Abirached in Durham, North Carolina. I had the great pleasure to meet her last November in Ohio, of all places, to find Zeina, at a conference on bande dessinée, or comic art, French comic art. And we got to spend the day together in Cincinnati and bought a lot of Obama paraphernalia while we were there. And then, because I was on leave in the spring, I saw Zeina again at the International Bande Dessinée Festival in Angoulême, France in January. Yeah. And in the rain. And again, we had coffee in Paris later in the semester, and I actually presented a paper on her work in the conference in Glasgow this summer. So it's really exciting for me to have Zeina just right down the street for several days. I wanted to add to a few details to the biographical information that Helen has already given you. As you know, Zeina was born in the early 80s and spent the first 10 years of her childhood living in war-ravaged Beirut. She was studied at the Académie libanaise des beaux-arts and the École nationale supérieure des arts décoratifs. And her training in Lebanon as a commercial designer is reflected in the striking, decorative, two-dimensional images that fill her work. Having arrived in Paris in 2004, Zeina was signed up as the first author of a new publishing house, Éditions Camourakis. Another first in her list of outstanding accomplishments is the selection of her memoir, Mourir, Partir, Revenir, Le Jeu des Hirondelles, as the first graphic novel to be awarded the French Voices grant for publication of a contemporary French language work in English, given by the PEN American Center and the French Embassy. The translation was published in 2012 with the title A Game for Swallows, To Die, to Leave, to Return. All of Zeina's works are autobiographical in nature, and all reveal her memories of the war she lived as a child. While some critics, including one in the New York Times in November of last year, are quick to point to Satrapi's Persepolis as a way of comparison, the similarities don't go much beyond the fact that both writers are women from the Middle East, both work in black and white, and both have written graphic novels about war as seen through the eyes of the child narrator. Whereas Satrapi's work has a frenetic nature and is filled with historical detail and the graphic violence of the Iranian Revolution, Zeina's works show the tenderness and warmth of close family and friends, while the war raging at the door is always presented as a void, very often as a completely white panel or page. As Helen said, Zeina's going to give a little overview of these works that I've been mentioning about war and memory, child narrator, and then she'll be giving us sort of the scoop on a work that's in progress, which takes a slightly different turn, but still is related to memory and family. Mm-hmm. So please join me in welcoming Zeina Abirached.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Claire. Hello, everyone. I'm going to start with images. Sorry. This is how it starts. It says, I was born in Beirut in 1981 in a dead-end street. So I guess it didn't start very well between Beirut and I. And this is the wall that blocked my street, the Youssef Samani street, where I was born. And these are the two first pages of my first comic book, Beirut Catharsis, which is here. It's a very small book. A lot of you, I think, know it already. Well, this wall was made of sandbags, and it was supposed to protect us from the sniper that was just from the other side of the street. But also, it blocked our way. So when I was a kid, I thought Beirut just stopped at that wall. But we were all together in this small street. There were a lot of shopkeepers and neighbors, and which I describe with a children's point of view. So that's why they stop at the waist. Here you go. Let me check my notes. So basically, we used to live together and do everything in the street or in a few streets in the same neighborhood, but we couldn't cross the demarcation line. And the whole west section of Beirut was still unexplored for me, and it was unknown for me during my 10 first years. But there was a day where I was playing with a helium-filled balloon, and he just escaped from my hands and went to the other side of the wall. And I think that's the first day I noticed that something was happening behind the wall, in the other side of the street and the city. And we were very much protected by the adults. I remember my mother used to tell us when we heard the sniper that the gunfire was actually hunters trying to kill the birds. So my brother and I, we were very afraid for the birds. But luckily enough, there was a shopkeeper in this little street that used to sell those strange cages with the birds inside. So we thought that he was here to protect them, as we were also protected by the adults and this wall. And then one day the wall was disappeared. After the war, we didn't have to use it anymore because the demarcation line was didn't existed anymore, and Beirut was reunified. And those were the years where I started to get to know my city and realizing that there was something else from the other side of the street. I remember there was a small realization, we said. For example, the first day that I realized that the street that was in the forbidden part of the city, just right in front of my street, but from the other side of the demarcation line, had exactly the same name that my street, Youssef Samani Street too. So actually, it was the same street continuing, but during war, it was from the other side and from the forbidden side of the city. And I think this is the most important thing that marked me during civil war, and it's the link between all my books. This question of territoriality and space in the civil war in the city. Well, I think that's it. So from the street of Youssef Samani in Beirut Catharsis, I then started to work on another space, the building where I was born. It was the 38, number 38 of this street, so it's 38 Rue Youssef Samani. It's the original title of this book. That doesn't look like a book, but is a book. I'm going to show it to you. So the building was a three-floor building, like this. And on each page that you see right here, there is a story of one of the neighbors. And I just wanted the reader to wonder, we say, in the book as if he was in the building, and then improvise a stroll, like going to have coffee at Thérèse Marsebain, for example, and then going to see Karamazov Abu Esbir, which is this cat. He's a Russian cat. And also I wanted the reader to have fun in this building. And this is the first book I wrote in Paris, because Beirut Catharsis, I wrote it in 2002. I was still in Beirut. And here I was in Paris, and I realized that I didn't even know the name of my neighbors. And this was very strange to me, because in Beirut, everyone knows each other, and you don't have, everyone knows what time you arrive, what time you leave, with whom and how, etc., etc. So I just started to remember all those people. And you see there is a way of, many ways of reading it. Horizontally, of course, like this. You can just link the neighbors together, or vertically. I'm going to show you something on the screen. It's more practical. Here, for example, you have Oscar Daoud, which is the first character. He used to clean his rugs with this strange thing here. I don't know if some of you know this this thing, yeah, someone, no? we use it to clean the rugs. Okay, bref. I know this is strange, but that's how we do it. So basically, you just have to beat the rug, and all the dust just goes in the air, and sometimes goes downstairs, just in the clean laundry of Claudine Roucaul's, which is she's very angry. You see, she's complaining in Arabic. I'm not going to translate; it's too rude. And because of her laundry, there is a big flaque d'eau, a pond, a puddle of water, just in the entry of the building. And Merlin Assaf, who is the neighbor here, you just see his feet, because he's a very coquet, dandy-like character, which he collects a lot of shoes. He has many shoes from different models. And every time he comes back to 38 Rue Septemani, he has to jump over the water. And sometimes he meets Médée Abdo, who is just right here, who usually goes to Thérèse Marsobin to have a coffee. And Thérèse, you know what she does? She reads the future in the coffee. Have you seen that? You know? Yeah. Exactly. And Médée Abdo is sure that she's going to find true love in 38 Rue Septemani. So sometimes she waits for Merlin Assaf. Well, I'm not gonna do the whole tour of the building, but there are a lot more stories to discover. Voilà. Oh, this is Ernest Chalit. I almost forgot. He's one of my favorite characters. It's the first time we see him in this book. Well, we just know that he's very tall and very thin, and that he plays cards alone. We don't know why. And he has dandruff. The dandruff was a way to link him with Oscar Daoud, with his dust, you know. The black dots on the white, and here you have white dots on black. Well, there are a lot of details that you can link, and so it's the first time we see him, and we only know some things about him. But we're gonna know him better in another book, which is this one, A Game for Swallows. I'll show you the French cover, because as you may have noticed, all the books are in black and white, and I really wanted the covers to be in black and white too. So in the French edition, they all look alike, and they are like brothers of the same story. But this is the American version, and well, it's nice too. No comment. My publisher is not here anyway. Well, in A Game for Swallows, you see Ernest is already on the cover, and you have my parents here. Do you see this is my mom and my dad, my brother, and I'm here with my curly hair. Oh, can I show you a movie? Do you feel like watching a movie? Yeah. Because I wanted to tell you how all this started. Actually, I was. Well, this is not too interesting, but never mind. I was in Paris, and I was trying to write something about my childhood memories during Civil War, but something more long with dialogues and all the characters the neighbors that I used to know, and I didn't know how to start with it because, you know, with Beirut Catharsis, I only describe some things, and 38 Rue Sept we have characters, but they don't talk. It's just very static. And I wanted to write something more long and like a real graphic novel with dialogues, a beginning and an end. And I didn't know how to do that. And one day I was doing some research on the internet, and I found a documentary called Beirut 1984, a street near the demarcation line. And well, I was born in 1981 in a street near the demarcation line. In 84, I was 3, so I said to myself, maybe I know this place. So I just clicked to see this documentary, and we're gonna watch it together. Where is it? Here. It's from the French television Antenne 2, and here it goes. Well, it's in French, but never mind. I can translate now.
Une des démarcations entre l'est et l'ouest de la ville. C'est justement à cet endroit névralgique et critique qu'ont choisi de se rendre nos envoyés spéciaux Jean-Marc Ilouz et Jean-Claude de la Tremblay. Au premier abord, on pourrait croire le lieu désert. À quelques dizaines de mètres à peine, sur la ligne de démarcation, le calme est loin d'être revenu. Mais à Beyrouth, le spectacle de ces voitures détruites, il y a une semaine par 3 missiles incendiaires, ne saurait provoquer le départ de tous les habitants du quartier. Après tout, cette fois-là, il n'y a pas eu de victime. C'est votre voiture?
Oui, je cherche des clés pour voir si elles sont encore récupérables.
On va quand même pas vous la voler, hein?
Non, mais les clés de la maison, du bureau, c'était un tout de clés, quoi, qui était en bout là.
On se protège comme on peut quand on ne veut pas mettre la clé sous la porte et travailler pendant les accalmies, comme ce commerçant.
À partir depuis 2-3 jours, il y a eu un peu d'accalmie, tout le monde a quitté le quartier, il ne me reste pratiquement presque personne.
Et alors, vous allez rester vous-même sans client?
C'est-à-dire, j'habite là, j'ai la maison à côté, je suis dans le quartier, il y a un abri tout près, et quand ça barde très fort, on descend à l'abri.
Quitter son magasin à 65 ans, Adib, le marchand de café, ne veut pas en entendre parler.
Je ne veux pas quitter.
Quoi?
Je suis dans mon magasin, je suis un Libanais. Je veux être toujours ici, au Liban. C'est mon pays.
Ici, un obus a détruit la cage d'escalier, il a fallu évacuer. Mais dans l'immeuble mitoyen, on a finalement renoncé à s'en aller. Couloirs et vestibules sont bien protégés, on y passe la nuit et souvent le plus clair de la journée.
Et c'est facile de quitter, vous croyez que c'est tellement facile? Maintenant que la montagne est tapée, qu'il y a pas mal de villages occupés aussi à la montagne, on ne peut plus aller du côté de la plage aussi, qui nous garantit que là-bas il n'y aura rien. Alors on est quand même peut-être plus ou moins en sécurité ici. Parce que les maisons sont
vides.
I'm going to stop it right here. Well, meet my grandmother and imagine my emotion when I just bumped into her in this documentary. So she's my grandmother. She's still alive and she's in Beirut. And when I was a kid, my parents told me, you know, ta grand-mère a été filmée par les Français. Your grandmother was filmed by the French. So when I was a kid, I thought that my grandmother was a movie star. So of course I imagined her with I don't know, her curly hair and feathers maybe, and a fume cigarette, you know, like in. And so when I saw this documentary, I just didn't understand that this was it. And I don't know if some of you understood what she said, but I'm gonna read to you the translation. It's here, because she's one of the first characters of the book. She said, anyway, at least I think maybe we're still more or less safe here. And this, this sentence may explain how people did to resist to 15 years of civil war, as just by believing that because you're still alive and still here, well, there is enough hope, to continue living and being here. And so this was very touching for me, more than that. C'était bouleversant, how do you say that? Overwhelming, yeah. And so that's how I started to write A Game for Swallows. And so from this documentary, I took some details, and I started to write the story of one night during Civil War, one particular night where my brother and I are at home, and my parents are at my grandmother's, and this night there were a lot of bombing, so it was very dangerous for them to return home, and we were in the apartment alone, but not for long. Because all the neighbors used to come and stay at our place during war, because we didn't have a shelter, and our entryway was supposed to be the place, the most secure place of the whole building, because we were at the second floor, so our entryway was the most safe entryway of all the building. Well, we're gonna see those neighbors, but before. I'm going to show you the map of our neighborhood. So the sniper was just here, and we just couldn't cross the street to go to our grandmother, for example. So that's why my parents couldn't come back. And because of the sniper, we used to. All the streets were blocked, as we saw in Beirut Catharsis, with walls made of sandbag, but also with containers that we took from the port. It was just not very far from here, and so we couldn't circulate normally in the neighborhood. And when I was a kid, for example, my grandmother, for me, it was like. It was very far. I thought it was very, very far from our place, and you see, it's not very far. So we had to invent another way of circulating in the neighborhood, and we used to never cross the street. So we used to go from a house to another, from building to another, from the inside of the buildings. We used to. Maybe I should read it because it's more. Maybe it's more. I don't find it. Well, anyway, yeah. Okay, this is it. So we passed through the inside of buildings, through inside courtyards and breaches made between the buildings and between the shops to be able to walk alongside the street without ever being outside. Maybe it's more clear now. And we had to wait for the right moment, then run, just to cross the street. And a short walk of 2 streets, like here, could take half an hour. And, well, my grandparents live very close to us, but when I was a child, I thought that their apartment was at the other end of the city, as I said. Well, and as the war progressed, our apartment, you see the plan here, the floor plan, thank you. Our apartment began to shrink, and all the rooms that looked over the demarcation line were less and less inhabited. For example, my bedroom, the dining room, the living room, or even the kitchen. And all the activity of the house became concentrated in one small room. Here, this one small white square, and this is the entryway where we used to do everything. So it resembled to anything but an entryway, because here we slept, my mom cooked, we ate our meals, we studied, we played, etc., etc. And this small place became full of furniture, of chairs, of beds, and the adults were convinced that it was the safest place in the house, and each neighbor had his theory. For example, Shukri, that we are going to see in a few pages, said that as long as we were next to a supporting wall, indestructible, nothing could happen to us. And Madame Linda, another neighbor, thought that the main thing was to be next to the stairs, to be able to run quickly, etc. But I had my own belief. For me, as long as we were in the entryway, nothing could happen to us because of this tapestry. And well, it was a wall hanging that belonged to my grandfather. And it shows, you may notice, it shows a scene from the Old Testament. It's the moment where Moses, who's here, who is escaping from Egypt with the Hebrews, blocks off the Pharaoh, who's here, and his troops by throwing his stick to the ground, and this stick is transformed into a snake. Well, here it's a dragon, so it's a bit exaggerated, but you get the feeling of it. And I thought that the dragon protected us. Well, we're gonna see that it was not so true, but I'm not gonna reveal the end of the story anyway. So this is a scene where my parents try to call us, and during war, you know, we didn't have electricity, water, gas, and also we didn't have dial tones to phones, so we could wait for hours just to have the dial tone. And usually, what adults did is giving us the phone and just wait for the dial tone and doing something else. And then, when the dial tone arrived, "Mom, come!" So, well, I just explain it here. And so you see the time passing by the smoke of the cigarettes. And this is something I'm going to use during all the book, because it happens in one place, in one night. So I use a lot of graphic details to try to stretch the time and to feel the rhythm of only one night. Here is the first neighbor that arrives to our place. She's Anhala, and here in 3 frames you see all her life. She used to work at Madame Linda and at our neighbors. So she was like a nanny for a grandmother, a mother, and a daughter who is Farah. We're gonna see her in some pages, and she's here trying to cooking a cake. This cake was the name of the cake is sfouf. Do you know sfouf? Sfouf was magic because it was the only cake we could bake at that time, because we didn't need fresh ingredients like eggs or butter, and it was yellow because we put in it this yellow spice. In English, I think it's turmeric. Mm-hmm. And this is Shukri. he was young and very dynamic, and he used to he was the only one to take the car and go in Beirut and to find water and electricity and way of and even bread, and he used to share it with all the building, and he was very generous. For example, before giving us a lettuce, for example, he used to wash it before, and this was a very precious gift in the war times, because we didn't have enough water. So, well, he used to wash it before giving it to us, and well, it was kind of precious. Well, as we didn't have water, this is how we took our bath. It was very fun. So the white car here is Shukri waiting at in line to have some gas. And this is Ernest. Well, he's also very elegant, and he was now we know in the Game for Swallows that he was a French teacher, and he was very fond of French literature, and he used to know Cyrano de Bergerac. Do you know Cyrano de Bergerac? By heart, and he used to not read us because he knew it, but just say the text with the tone and the gestures, and it was very important to us because it was like this bubble of imagination and dream during these hard nights. Yeah, well, this is la tirade du nez. I don't have the English version on the screen, but well, anyway. Well, and well, here you have Ernest, my brother, and I, Shukri and Anhala, and a very important character, which is the radio. And all the story of A Game for Swallows is inside the apartment, and we are very much protected. I mean, all the story is. The structure of the book is divided into, you have the outside that we see just in the beginning of the book, and the inside of the apartment. And we, once we are inside, we never see the outside and the war. It's everything is happening inside. And the only a moment where war invites itself inside is here, for example, with the radio that give us a lot of bad news. And this is a story I really like. It's about another neighbor, Mr. Khaled. I'm going to show him to you just later. But Khaled used to tell us that he was born in Texas, and that Texas was a wonderful place with a big lighthouse and a Ferris wheel and Mary Creams and a lot of lights and people in the streets, and of course the Mediterranean Sea. And well, okay. It was later, when I was 10 years old, when I went to, for the first time, to the western part of Beirut, that I recognized actually Texas, because Mr. Khalid was born in West Beirut, and he followed his wife, Madame Linda, who was from the eastern part, and he was stuck in East Beirut, and he was very nostalgic about West Beirut and his neighborhood, and I think that for him Texas was the farthest endroit, place. Thank you. The farthest place he could actually imagine, and so he used to tell us that he was born there. Well, this is Farah showing us pictures of her wedding, because, you know, as civil war last 15 years, people try to live in a normal way when, well, as much as possible. So, well, she's describing her wedding with a big cake and a white dress, but only they had to run to the church because of the sniper and then run back after the ceremony. But everything was quite normal, I guess, apart from that. And this is actually the first scene that I wrote, but now it's in the middle of the book, so I kind of rearranged everything. And it's a scene where you see all the neighbors, and here also you can read it horizontally and vertically. And well, Farah is waiting for her visa, and she's also pregnant, and they want to live in Canada because they want their kids to be safe and to be in a safe country. And the problem they have is that they have to choose a name that is not too Arabic, for the kid to be for him to be comment tu dis accepted, yeah. Okay. And for example, my brother's name is Philippe, which is Philippe in France, or Philippe. So I guess that my parents did the same, had the same thinking, like a lot of people did. Well, my name is Zeina. I'm not going to comment that. But I'm here, right? And did you notice that we, I don't know in the other frames, but we always see the wall hanging, the tapestry. So it's like it's like a character that is very present and very important in this community. Well, in this scene, I try to describe something very important as a game. We used to try to know by the sound of the shelling if the bombing was coming through us or going from our neighborhood to the other side of the city. So it was very important to know that. And here I try to transform it as a game. So you have this succession of frames with départ, arrivée, outgoing, incoming, outgoing, incoming, outgoing, incoming, and then woof, bram. So you just have to listen well and try to exercise your ear. And here is one of the last scenes where Shukri decided to go and try to fetch my parents. Thank you. And he's not returning, and we are very worried. And so here maybe it's like maybe 1 minute, but I wanted to this minute to be very long, and for the reader to feel that it was very stressful and that time didn't pass. And so I used the tic-tac of Ernest's watch to add a lot of angoisse and anguish and stress, and you have also some details. Well, of course, the Khalid smoking and a lot of puff, 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 puff adding. So I worked a lot on the onomatopoeia. How do you say onomatopoeia? Onomatopoeia. So we never hear we actually never hear war. Just in one page we have this huge bram and the radio, but on the inside I focused on the everyday sounds of Anhala making the cake or the coffee, or of the neighbors drinking whiskey, or hear the tic-tac of the watch, and as if the outside world was non-existent. And here is one of the last pages. I'm not going to tell you the end of the story, but we just see a car driving near a wall with a graffiti that says "Mourir, partir, revenir, c'est le jeu des hirondelles." Well, to die, to live, to return, it's a game for swallows, and it's signed by Florian. Florian is not exactly a Lebanese name, so it was very bizarre to see this graffiti. The first time I saw this graffiti was in the 90s, so after the civil war, and this wall was exactly in the beginning of the no man's land, and it was very. I mean, every time I used to go there and take a picture, and even now when I return to Beirut, I just go there and check that the graffiti is still here and that we still can read the sentence. And this sentence was the first thing I wrote on my. I wrote when I started to write this story, but I didn't know how to use it. And when I started to describe all the neighbors, I noticed that maybe the hirondelles, the swallows, were them, and were all the neighbors that are waiting in this building for war to end, and for them to go in a safer place. Outside Lebanon, or even inside Lebanon, and maybe it's also all the Lebanese that had to qui ont dû se déplacer, had to leave. Ouais. Displaced. Okay, thank you. And it was funny because a few years ago I received an email from this young guy I don't know. He was telling me, "Oh, I read your book and it was very important for me, and thank you. And you know what? I know this wall and this graffiti, and I really love it, and I think it's important to us, and we have to." I mean, it's wow. Well, he was very enthusiastic, and he told me, "You know, the last time I went there, I noticed that the sentence was a bit erased, and you know what I did?" Oh, I said no. Well, I didn't say anything because it was an email, but I was no. And he actually rewrote each letter in black. The actual graffiti was blue. And I was like, no, this graffiti, I mean, it was important because in this city who was destroyed and rebuilt and that changed every day, it's Beirut is changing, and this graffiti was still there. I mean, I was very angry with him. But then I said to myself that it was maybe well, it was important in a way for the memory of the city and for this memory work, because imagine this guy named Florian, who was from Belgium. I did some research about him. He was a Belgian dancer, I think, who came to Beirut with this dancing troupe and for a spectacle, for a show, and he wrote this graffiti in the 90s, and there was this girl in 2006 writing a book with the graffiti, and this guy in 2012 rewriting the graffiti. And I thought the link was maybe interesting to see that every generation, I hope that it's going to continue, has an artistic input in this particular place, because I didn't tell you, I should have started with that. But in Lebanon, we didn't do our memory work. We didn't at all work about what happened during civil war. And politically and officially it's the amnesia. And during the reconstruction, they tried to erase all the traces of civil war and just to rebuild everything as it was before civil war, like in the golden ages. And and we don't even have a memorial even now that says that, well, there were so many killed, or to just have a place to say that it happened. And even in schools, in the history books, the program stops in the 60s, as if nothing happened from the 60s until now. And well, civil war started in 75 and ended in the 80s. So this is something we don't ever talk about. And I think a lot of our problems today comes from this, and all the politicians that were there during war are still here today. And if it's not them, it's their children or their brothers, and you know. So I think that this trace, I thought that this trace is in a way maybe important. Voilà. Je suis trop bavarde ou ça va? On a le temps? Une heure? Wow. Ok. Je vais faire vite. Au revoir. Je vais faire vite. I'm gonna run. Just to show you, Je me souviens, Beyrouth, the last one, who is gonna be published in English in a couple of months. And it's also about my childhood memories, and it's a lot of short stories that start with Je me souviens, I remember. And so you have personal memories, like here. The same year I had to put braces, to wear glasses, and to cut my hair. So it was not very funny. And memories about my generation. A lot of you don't know this thing, but yeah, I remember the tick, tick, tick of it. And this is still Choukri. He comes back, and in this Je me souviens, he goes with my brother in the neighborhood to pick up éclats d'obus. I have it somewhere. Shells, yeah. Well, some pieces of the shrapnel. Oh. Nice word. Shrapnel. And he used to collect them, and with the neighbors, they used to exchange the shrapnels, like a big shrapnel, and I give you one big, you give me two small, well, etc. It's a bit weird, but it was very fun. Well, we'll talk about it later. And in that time, I used to always keep a backpack near my in my room, where I had the most important things in my life, which were my Walkman and my Rubber Soul cassette from the Beatles, some chewing gums, and a Tintin, some pictures, and well, a flashlight. Very important, the flashlight, just in case we had to run in a hurry. Because we had to run a lot of times. And these are all the places we used to live during these 10 years of war, my first 10 years. And when I did the list with my mom, we noticed that every time we used to come back to Beirut just to arrange some things in the apartment and to live there if it was safe enough. And so it was like, that's how I had the idea of this board game with every time returning to the La Case Départ, to the beginning again. So, well. And here is the story about my father, who used to listen to music very loud during civil war, but very, very loud. And I always thought that it was so loud to cover the chaos of the outside world. And no one used to complain, of course. But when the war ended and the telephones came back, all the neighbors used to call my mom, like, what? Tell him to stop this music. So he bought headphones. And this is the first day I noticed that my street continued from the other way, as I told you in the beginning. And this is Texas. Remember? The first day I went to West Beirut, and I remember that my parents were always lost in West Beirut. They didn't know their way, so we used to ask everyone, where do we go there, and where do we go there? And a lot of time we used to meet like these refugees like us that also didn't know the way. And I remember that the first thing we did was buying swimming suits and going to the beach, because war at that time was in the eastern part, and in the west they were living in a normal way. And this is one of the last memories of Je me souviens. It's about the war of July 2006, the 33 days of war. I don't know if you remember. And it was the first time that I lived a war, but outside Lebanon. I was in Paris, and it was very strange to me to just have the news on in the newspapers and on television, and not to be there. And the only thing I wanted to do is going there, which is kind of difficult to understand. And I remember that my mom used to send me a lot of SMS, just to text messages, just to tell me that everything was all right. And so it was in her text messages, she used to tell me, yeah, well, I cooked some rice with chicken, you like that, and your father he listened to Mozart, and your brother is reading a book. I don't know the English translation, that's why. And I remember that I said to myself that everything they were actually living was in all the text messages she didn't send me. And I guess that's what I try to do in my books, just showing the other part of civil war, not the official image with all the destruction and the political enjeux, but the way people lived and tried to manage with the war. Voilà. And this is Georges Perec. For those who may know him, he wrote a book in French called Je me souviens. So it's a clin d'œil, a glimpse, to a wink. Okay, second new word. Voilà. J'enchaîne. Okay, let's take a musical pause. Where is it? So we are listening to a very special piano. It's a piano who was invented in Beirut in the 50s, and which is a very special piano, because he can play Occidental music, like a normal piano that everyone knows, and also Oriental music. And he has exactly the same shape of a normal piano, but there is something my great-grandfather added to it in order to play Oriental music. I don't know if some of you are familiar with music. Well, in just en deux mots, in Occidental music, the space between the notes is a tone or half a tone, and in Oriental music it's a quarter of tone. So basically in a piano it's like we don't have enough touches, keys in the piano. So if we want to actually play Oriental music in a piano, we need more keys. And my great-grandfather was a piano tuner in the 50s in Lebanon, and he was passionate. He had one passion, the piano and the Oriental music, and he always wanted to join these two passions and play Oriental music in a piano. So he, during all his life, he tried to bricoler the piano to be able to play the Oriental music. So he just added a pedal. It took him 20 years, 25 years, so I'm just going to say it as it was easy, but he managed to add a pedal which changed the places of the chords inside the piano. So when you play on the key, it's inside the piano. It's not exactly at the right place. It's just 1/4 of tone near the right chord. Did you understand? Okay. And what is very interesting in this piano is that when you release the pedal, it becomes again a normal piano. So basically it's like bilingual piano that can play, that can talk Oriental music and that can talk Occidental music. And this is what interests me in this story. And the piano is one of the characters of my next graphic novel. And of course, a piano is black and white, so it's very interesting graphically. But it's very difficult to me to talk about my family. In A Game for Swallows, I don't know if some of you noticed, if someone of you read it, what I did, well, in the beginning, I started to draw all the neighbors and to transform them in characters. And when it came to my parents, I realized I couldn't actually make them talk. It was very difficult for me to make them talk as they normally talk, and it was too close, I guess. So that's how I chose to tell the story in of a night where they are not here. So all the story, I don't have to draw them and make them talk. Well, anyway, in this new project, I didn't know my grandfather, but they told me a lot about him, and it's very difficult for me to write a biography because I think I prefer to write about how I fantasy this great grandfather fantasize, and what I imagined that his life was. So I decided to change the epoch, the period. And the story takes place in the 60s during this famous golden age of Beirut. So it's Beirut that I didn't know, but that my grandfathers knew, and they told me a lot about it. And I think that my generation is a lot nostalgic about this golden age, because we just inherited a city that it was destroyed and now is rebuilt again, but it's not à la hauteur of the myth. How do you say? It will never be at the same level of grandeur of this mythical Beirut of the 60s. So I decided to invent a new character who is a musician and who lives in Beirut in the 60s. And here he is. So this is one of the first pages. He wakes up. And he has a little bird called Ludwig. I wonder why. So he's just looking out the window, and this is Beirut in the 60s. It's not yet very... there are still traditional houses, and you can see the sea. And, well, obviously he plays piano every day, and there is something very funny about him. Is that he used to wear a tarbouche, you know, this hat that we used to wear during the Ottoman Empire, and in the 60s in Beirut, no one wore it anymore, but he used to wear it. I don't know exactly why, but it was like this, his particular sign, and he used to work in, let me show you. He used to work in an office, very boring work, because he had to earn his living that way. And when he went every morning, he went to the office, and every night he came back from the office too. Well, no, that's not true. Every morning he went to the office, and in his strolling in Beirut, he knew everyone, and of course everyone knew him because of the tarbouche. It was very odd, and he used to say hi to everyone, and every time he said hi, he used to like tap the tarbouche, like poke in a small poke, and say bonjour. And I imagined that all these pokes in the tarbouche created the melody that he was the only one to hear, of course. But I imagined that that's how he composed music in his stroll in Beirut. And well, so he's listening to that music, and when he arrived to the office, he used to also say hi to everyone, and he used to make sure that everyone saw him coming in. And so he went to his office, he put his tarbouche and starting to work, and then leaving without his tarbouche, and going to back home to his piano to compose his music and to work on his oriental tones. And during this time in the office, well, everyone was looking for him, but as the tarbouche was still there, they thought that he was still there, because Abdallah, it's his name, never went out without his tarbouche. So that's a little trick he had to pretend to work and actually earn his living, and then go to his piano. Well, I'm looking for a way of expressing the both languages, Oriental and Occidental music, in a graphic way. I'm not yet satisfied with it, but I'm trying to find a way for the reader to know that we are in an Oriental mode or in an Occidental mode, just without hearing, of course, but just visually. I want the reader to feel that we switched from a language to another, Well, I still don't have it. So this is a scene where he tries to find a solution. Well, that's it, I guess. And in the real story, he did one prototype of this Oriental piano in Vienna in the 50s, but and he came back with it to Lebanon. But when the war started, he couldn't continue with his invention. He couldn't sell it to all the Arab countries, and so everyone forgot about it. And there is still this old prototype at my grandfather's house in Beirut, but that's it. And the music that you heard a few minutes ago, where you can hear him play on this prototype, because my grandfather recorded him at the end of his life. So this is the only traces we have of this piano, and I'm trying to rebuild the story and to give him a second life. That's it, I guess. Voilà. Merci.